Today's conversation is about something that's quietly reshaping how we buy everything from furniture to software to groceries. We're talking about marketplace. And more importantly, we are talking about the people building the infrastructure that makes those marketplaces possible. My guest today has been in the trenches of marketplace partnerships for years now, working with some of the biggest brands, trying to figure out how to actually make their model work. We have here Art Boyd. Thank you, Art, joining. All right, we'll get started with a few rapid fire questions to get into the flow of things, and then would love to know your background and what you're seeing the future of e-commerce marketplaces is. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So the first one is your favorite current buzzword that will be dead by 2027.
GEO.
The most common reason a strategic alliance fail.
Misaligned business outcomes or expectations.
All right. Better to have 5 deeply integrated partners or 50 transactional partners?
5 deeply integrated.
The one skill you can't teach a successful partnership executive.
Listening.
If you had to launch a new marketplace today, what single category would you choose?
Electric vehicles, electric home, solar. That's got long-term legs.
The single biggest industry that will be 100% marketplace driven 5 years from now.
Retail.
Do you mean all retail?
All retail.
Best marketplace you've seen that nobody talks about?
Ooh. That's a good one. I think probably because of the US angle, Best Buy Canada is not well known outside of Canada.
One book or resource that changed how you think about partnerships?
Adam Grant's, what's the title of his book? Give and Take, I think. Adam Grant, Give and Take.
Great one, yep. If you weren't in marketplace partnerships, what would you be doing?
Well, I'd be doing partnerships in some form of technology. My background starts in e-commerce, and so probably in that space. It'd be somewhere in e-commerce.
That wraps up the rapid fire question. So before we dive into the marketplace, I wanted to know about you. What's something about your journey that wouldn't show up on your profile? Maybe a weird job, a pivotal moment, or something that actually shaped how you think about partnerships or channel sales, alliances today.
Yeah. Well, weird job that's not in my LinkedIn profile or my resume is I was a valet car parking attendant back in high school. So I got to drive really nice cars for very short distances. That was fun. In terms of pivotal moments, probably for me, one is I had a boss mentor back in my early days of partnerships who really stressed it's all about the relationship. It's all about the human relationship. If you haven't built that, you're not going to have success. So that was number one. And then you asked me about a pivotal book for partnerships, and I mentioned the Adam Grant book. But in general, there was a book by a psychologist, Carol Dworkin, I think, and she was writing about the 2 personality types People who view life as pass fail, or people who view life as a learning experience. And we have natural inclinations, but you can also just make a choice. And so I think making the choice to view everything as a learning experience gives you a lot more freedom to try things. And then when something's not working, you say, oh, that's not working, let's move on. And so I think that's been really important for me.
Wow, that is great. And how did that lead you into the world of marketplace overall? Like, because this isn't exactly a career path people plan for in college, say.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think the first step was, ending up in technology, which, was not really my, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a software engineer or an engineer of any sort. So ending up in technology, I ended up in the partnering space because of the relational aspects, the commercial aspects, and the strategic aspects. So that was my start in technology and in e-commerce, really, from the get-go. That's been my entire career, which has been a great segment to work in because it just keeps on growing, keeps on getting. And that commerce path really led me to marketplace because it is the evolution. There are, we talk about this, you may talk about it in your work, I certainly do in mine, but, Commerce 1.0 was the first incarnation of online shopping, right? And there were some sub variations, 1.1, 1.2, mobile and social and things like that. But that was the first generation. And then the second generation was marketplace, the platforms, the Ubers, the Pinterest, the various platforms that were created. And I started in the Commerce 1.0 version, the original standalone stores. And then through my journey in e-commerce, when, the Commerce 2.0 started to develop around marketplaces, whether it was Amazon or Uber or other platform type businesses, Miracle came along and developed a platform that enabled anyone to do it. And so that was a natural flow for me as a commerce professional to move into the marketplace space.
And you've also worked at Adobe and then Oracle. What sort of experience brought you into marketplace? Was there something interesting they were doing, and then you jumped into working at Miracle and then working into the marketplace space?
Yeah. So I worked at Magento, which was a commerce platform. It got bought by Adobe, but I didn't actually work at Adobe. I left Magento before that. But it was through that experience with Magento that I became aware of marketplaces. One of my systems integration partners in France called me up and said, there's this cool technology. It's great. You guys have to partner with them. And of course, it was the marketplace platform I work for now. And I looked at their site and I didn't really understand it. I was like, they do the same thing we do. We're competitors, we're not partners. But one of my more technically inclined colleagues looked at it, on my behalf and really said, no, here's what they're doing. Here's how it works. It makes sense. And so based on that understanding and based on the recommendation of a partner I trusted, I started speaking with them, from my Magento perspective. And then that led me to actually join the company because I could see how transformative it was going to be.
Fantastic. That's awesome. What does building an alliance in this space actually look like day to day? Like, what are you actually doing that creates value? And I'm pretty sure you're involved, calling a lot of existing partners, trying to build more partnership. What does the day to day look like?
Yeah. Well, I think the value creation piece, it really starts with thinking of who your customer is, and by that, I mean, what is the company? What vertical are they in? But also, what's the role? Who's the person? And thinking about the problems they're trying to solve. So it's all about pulling together what's needed to solve that person's problem. That's the foundation, and that dictates who you want to partner with and what you want to do together, and how you present yourselves. So from that point on, it's really making sure that when you create this partnership, you keep that customer and their problem in mind, and you bring to the table the pieces of the pie that you each contribute, and make sure that it's easy for that client to consume it, right? You don't want to bring complexity to them. You want to bring solutions to them. So there's a strategy piece of what's the problem, who's going to solve it. There's an integration piece, both from the selling and the technical perspective, to make it easy for that customer to say, yes, that's a solution to my problem. And then there's a lot of relationship management behind the scenes to keep these organizations aligned and working together, because they have common interests, but not identical interests. And so there's a lot of work making sure they stay focused on that client and that client problem. I have one partner, it's a big commerce platform. And early on when we were getting to know each other, we talked about our corporate culture and our corporate values. And we use slightly different words, but we both basically put the number one mission of the company for each of us was that merchant success. Like whatever it took to get the merchant to be successful was what we were going to do. And so as we evolved our relationship, and we had some pretty tough negotiations about how we would work together, whenever we had a conflict, we'd kind of go back to which path was going to get the merchant the greatest success. And that would help us resolve conflicts. So again, I think it's that stay focused on what the client needs, what you can bring to the table, and good communication behind the scenes to stay aligned.
That's fantastic. And when we talk about like strategy, when you're trying to convince like a major brand to commit to a marketplace model, essentially to let the third-party sellers represent their brand, how do you build that trust, and what sort of conversation it's like?
Yeah. Well, we have done it step by step, and so where we are today, I think the piece I mentioned about merchant success, that gives us credibility. The second thing that we really do when we're talking to a prospective customer that's thinking about marketplace is same thing I just described to you, but it's saying, who's your customer, Mr. Retailer, and what are their problems? And are you solving their problems? If you are, you're probably making money. If you're not, you're probably in some difficulty. So we really position the conversation around how do you need to behave strategically to make sure that you keep that customer. And from that approach, it usually leads to a good outcome. Now, there's a lot going on with companies today. I mean, I'm going to leave the whole AI thing aside, but in general, there's always a new challenge. And so depending on your vertical, they're looking at 3, 4, or 5 strategic initiatives. They can't do them all every year. So some of our great, prospects say, not this year, Miracle, come back next year. And we do, because we're in this for the long haul. But strategically, it makes sense. And so eventually, they're going to be able to turn their attention to marketplace because it offers value to their customers.
And what sort of like the biggest marketplace myth you hear constantly, like from brands, retailers, or anyone per se, that just like drives you crazy because it's completely wrong? And you could talk about cannibalization for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to name names to offend anyone. But some of the things that, we've seen over time that we scratch our heads about is, again, I'm back to that point of like, if you're talking about a retailer, what is it that the consumer wants, and are you delivering it? So oftentimes you'll see retailers make a mistake of putting their marketplace like it's a flea market out in the parking lot, you know? So they have their core site where they're trying to deliver their core value to their customers. But over there somewhere, if you click far enough and look around, you'll find marketplace. And so that's generally a mistake because the reason to do marketplace in the first place is to meet your client's core needs. So it needs to be one experience for the client. So any retailer out there that might someday hear this, if they go, wow, yeah, we have our marketplace off on a tab or it's a link somewhere, I would encourage them to think about whether that's the strategy to really meet their client needs.
And towards the more advice questions, I'll jump on and want to really get a sense of what's the future like, right? In this segment. So give me one prediction about marketplace in 2026 that you don't think enough people are talking about right now. There's a whole lot of buzz around AI, but
Yeah.
what's coming that's going to surprise everyone?
Well, personally, I think B2B in 2026 is going to be really big. Now, in the B2B world, they often don't use the words marketplace. I think a classic error in digital commerce is, what we learn in retail, we say the same thing for everyone else. And that's always been true, from the early days when B2C commerce players showed up at B2B companies and said, let's put things in the shopping cart. And we don't do shopping carts, we do purchase orders. So I think B2B will be a really, really interesting place because I think the technology that has been developed in marketplaces is going to be really valuable in the B2B world. The B2B world has been hesitant because of these ideas of channel conflict. How do I go direct, but I have this long-standing business partnerships? And the changes, just demographically, like the people who are running B2B organizations now have grown up fully digital. So we have to account for their behavior and the way they behave in life in general, but in business. So this marketplace model, this marketplace technology will allow manufacturers, for example, to pull their distributors in and deliver an experience and value to customers by embracing all parts of the distribution chain rather than disintermediating anyone. So I think B2B will be a really interesting place where more and more people invest in new technologies to connect buyers and sellers, even if it's sort of networked.
And what should companies do to prepare for that?
Well, yeah, depending on where you are in that value chain, I think if you're a distributor, then I think you should embrace this, right? It gives you there's some concern of distributors of being disintermediated, and so there's some resistance to participating. But I think it's really a way to embrace getting closer to customers and delivering more value. You may have to reinvent what you're doing to deliver more value in terms of service when someone comes into that distribution point to collect a product. If you're a manufacturer who works with distributors, I think you do need to start investing in the technologies now because your customers are already there. And if you don't do it, you're going to not meet their needs and lose out to your competition. So I think investing in it and investing for the long term, if you're a manufacturer, that means technology, but it also means these relationships with the distributors so that you bring them on board to a new business model.
And we are seeing B2C really active. Every retailer, every big box retailer at least, are actively pursuing or exploring marketplace as an option or change in business model as well. when you're talking about B2B, there's another piece of puzzle which I'm not seeing as much of maybe interest or maybe value. And that is services. Do you see potential companies like big box retailers or even existing companies that are already in services? Would they explore marketplace services as a potential? Are you seeing any movement in terms of potential clients as well?
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. Services, I think are difficult. They're all different. So, the beauty of the marketplace model is to connect supply and demand for known items. And so the pricing can be known, the quality can be known, etc. So it connects supply and demand that can't find each other. In services, of course, it all is different and it all depends. And so it can be challenging in that market. Now, different people, I guess, Best Buy with TaskRabbit, and some others have tried to pull in services marketplaces. And, you could in a way say like Uber's a service marketplace because it's a driving service. So I think services, to the extent that it can be somewhat, quantified as opposed to completely open-ended, can work. But some of them are just very challenging because what is the actual service? How much of it is it? What would it cost? It's hard to know in advance. If you think of the Uber example, like how did they tackle some of those things? Well, the service is a ride. So the distance, allowed them to quantify to a certain extent, because you'd say where you wanted to go. And then the quality, to a certain extent, you had a vehicle. They created these categories of vehicles, what quality or luxury of a vehicle do you want? And then of course the piece that's still a variable is the driver. So they created this rating system so that you would get a sense that I'm getting a quality driver. So they took a service, transportation, and they made it more quantifiable and then highly scalable. So that worked quite well for them.
And what do you see as the potential for drop shipping going forward? It was extremely extremely popular, I'd say, during 2010, 2015 timeframe. A lot of folks who were exploring business opportunities ended up even trying drop shipping either through Shopify or the Ecommerce and other avenues. And these were individuals who did this as a full-time business. It's still quite active. There's a lot more brand-focused drop shipping, I'd say.
Yeah.
Whether it's individuals who've already created their own brands or they are very, very popular in social channels, and they're able to execute upon a profitable dropshipping business.
Yeah.
Where do you see that in the future?
Yeah. So Miracle is actually really excited about dropshipping. And we have started to speak recently about this idea of your unowned inventory strategy, right? So and it goes back to strategy. And it goes back to what is it that your clients want? In the years that I've been here, there's been a really good evolution of the strategic and financial thinking. So we see it as this continuum of inventory I want to own and have in my facilities, whether that's a warehouse or a shelf in a store, out to inventory that I don't want to own it right away, but I want to make it available to my clients. And then depending on the product category and the financials around that, you might want to drop ship, which implies that, the retailer or the business sets the price, they take on certain warranty responsibilities, et cetera, but it's fulfilled by this third party, and the buy-sell transaction is a flash sale. But that might have certain benefits in terms of the experience you're giving to the client and the margins you're getting on the product, right? But then there might be others where you want to offer that product to your client, but the marketplace model makes more sense. The margins are better there. And it's also a more experimental end of the spectrum where you can add products more quickly. So we see a lot of our clients having this strategy of unknown inventory, and some items drop ship, some items marketplace. We've also seen, particularly like in wholesale distribution, clients who said, oh my goodness, I have these products I used to carry in my warehouse, but they're slow moving. I'm going to move them out, maybe to drop ship, maybe to marketplace, and then free up my warehouse space. So it becomes a combination of meeting that client need and then also doing the financial analysis for profitability. But we see that full spectrum of owned and unowned inventory, and within unowned inventory, dropship and marketplace, and our technology does that. So we're seeing a lot of that. We're pretty excited about it.
Fantastic. And what sort of new areas, new avenues you're seeing being embedded within the marketplace area? Obviously, AI has been the buzzword, and we're seeing most companies trying to adapt to some of the potential areas where they can embed or have their customers use some of the AI features that say, like on catalog side, a lot of the descriptions are getting updated by just AI tools, ChatGPT or Anthropic, Gemini. We're seeing all that happening already, but are you seeing a lot more value as well as companies trying to push towards, yes, we want to embed in these areas, or not even include it in XYZ areas? What sort of potential you're seeing there?
Well, we're all just sort of scratching the surface, aren't we? And finding new ways. So tip of the iceberg is where we are with AI. Obviously, the content has been one area where people have embedded the AI functionality. We've done that certainly, to review content, to improve content, et cetera. But another area that's been really important in marketplace has been in fulfillment. So we've used a lot of advanced AI and data analytics to improve the delivery promise. And it's a really important one. And certainly, someone like Amazon has really set the bar very high for delivery promise. But the point of it is that you got to balance, right? If you promise someone, I'll get it to you in an hour, and you don't, that's really bad. You'll never get a second sale. You'll have they'll be mad at you. However, if you say to someone, I'll get it to you in a month for sure, maybe sooner, they're not going to buy from you. So you really need to have an accurate delivery promise, because if it's too vague or too long, you won't get the sale. If you get the sale and you fail to fulfill in the delivery, then that bad experience is going to come back and haunt you in future lost sales. So we've been using a lot of data, and because we have so much volume in the marketplace, so much experience, that we can turn around and make suggestions on what actual delivery promise should be based on experiences that we're seeing across the network. And clients we have a product for that. It's called Miracle Delivery Manager. That product, allows people to make a better delivery promise, and that accuracy leads to, better closed sales, and then also higher customer sat. Uncertainty, what do people do when they're not sure? They say they add on days. I probably can get it to you in 3 days, but I'll say 5 just to be safe. But then you lose the at CSAT. So the delivery piece, I think, will be really interesting as that continues to flow through the ecosystem.
That's fantastic. One final question for you. If you were in your 20s or 30s, what advice you'd give to yourself?
I would definitely encourage that younger self to take more risks. I think the risk profile of a 30-year-old, should be quite risk taking, and I don't mean foolish, but I mean thinking it through and venturing. I think I spoke to you a little bit earlier about the the book Carol Dworkin. That's people who have fixed mindset or growth mindset. The book is called Mindset. And I would encourage people to adopt that growth mindset, try things, stretch yourself, and not you got a lot of time is on your side at 30 if you're making risks. And then I guess from a career profile perspective, the other thing that I'd encourage people to do is as early as possible get some experience in people management. Some people like it, some people hate it. And whether you try it and say, I never want to do this again, I think it's really important set of skills, because honestly, whether it's hierarchical or horizontal, we're all managing people and managing relationships. And so those kind of people management skills, whether you're going to use them with people who report to you, with people who work alongside you, it's really improved communication skills, and that will make you more effective in whatever role you want to play. So those are my 2 pieces of advice.
Awesome. And to add to that question, how do you see that possible for that individual, right, who is probably looking for that skill, probably looking to get involved and get better at it? How would that person pursue that as an opportunity?
The people management type skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think number 1 is taking that risk and asking for it, raising your hand and saying, I want to try this. And people might say no, but keep asking. And if you feel like your current organization is not a good place to enable that, then maybe find a new organization, take a risk and try something different. I know that, today in today's job market, right, there's a lot of concern about young college graduates, getting displaced by AI and not finding jobs, and the world will come to an end. And I'm sitting there going, if you can't get hired, start your own damn company. And don't wait around for someone. So I would say the same thing to a 30-year-old. If someone's, if you're working somewhere that they don't want to give young people management responsibility, go to a place that does and get that experience. Take the risk.
Well, Art, that was fantastic. This whole conversation, getting more personal as well as exploring areas of marketplace and e-commerce, having this conversation was extraordinary.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it as well. So thanks for inviting me.
Really, really appreciate you pulling back the curtains on what actually goes into building these marketplace partnerships as well. The messy parts, the human part, and not just a pitch deck. So for everyone listening, if you got value from this, share it with someone building or thinking about marketplace. And Art, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.